If Niccolò Machiavelli were alive today, he would not be writing books. He would not waste his time posting tweets, chasing followers, or joining debates. He would be invisible, moving like a shadow, shaping outcomes long before anyone else even noticed. While others fought to be seen, Machiavelli would win by being unseen. Because in a world addicted to attention, the greatest power belongs not to the loudest voice, but to the one who doesn't need to speak at all. Look around. Politicians scramble for headlines. Influencers trade dignity for likes, and executives fight to prove who is the smartest in the room. Yet real power rarely belongs to those making noise. It belongs to the strategist in the background, the person who quietly directs the stage while others fight for applause. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago, and if he were here now, his lessons would cut deeper than ever. He would remind us that people are not moved by truth, but by perception. They are not bound by loyalty, but by fear. They are not guided by reason, but by their own desperate need to feel safe. That is why we are here. Over the next 25 minutes, we will explore his 21 rules of psychological control, the very principles Machiavelli would use to outsmart anyone in today's world. These are not abstract theories, but blueprints of power, rules that explain why the powerful rise, why the weak are forgotten, and why most people never realize they are being controlled until it's too late. This is not about cruelty, nor about morality. It is about reality. The question is simple. Will you understand the game, or will you remain a pawn on someone else's board? Power is safest when it hides in silence. Most people rush to prove themselves, flashing credentials, boasting about achievements, demanding recognition in every room they enter. But Machiavelli would do the opposite. He would walk in quietly, let others speak first, and allow himself to be underestimated. Because when people think you pose no threat, they expose their true selves. They reveal weaknesses, insecurities, and secrets, all while believing you are harmless. And then, when the moment is right, you strike from a position they never prepared for. To be underestimated is not weakness, it is a weapon. And once they underestimate you, charm becomes your next disguise. In a world where truth is buried beneath headlines and hashtags, perception is far more dangerous than honesty. Machiavelli knew that people are moved not by what is real, but by what they believe. He would not waste his time proving integrity. Instead, he would craft illusions, smiling in boardrooms, disarming even enemies with a carefully built image of warmth and charisma. He would let them believe he was trustworthy, while quietly rewriting the ending to the story they thought they were living. The lesson is clear. You do not need to be good. You only need to appear as good. But while most fight desperately to be understood, Machiavelli would leave people guessing. He would shift between warmth and coldness, generosity and distance, silence and intensity. Not because he was confused, but because they were. And confusion breeds obsession. When people cannot define you, they begin to orbit you, analyzing every gesture, overinterpreting every silence. Ambiguity turns a person into a puzzle, and puzzles consume attention. The less you explain, the more you control the rhythm of thought. That is why Machiavelli would never reveal the full picture. In our world, people broadcast every step, careers, plans, strategies. But the second they see how you move, they prepare counterattacks. Machiavelli would never allow this. He would let people see the surface, but never the factory. He would appear open while guarding his true mechanics, seeming noble while moving ruthlessly. His results would arrive suddenly, long after his rivals had assumed he was still resting. Power lies not in what you show, but in what you conceal. Yet even concealment requires balance. Perfection, after all, is forgettable, but flaws are unforgettable. Machiavelli would construct a mask of brilliance, confidence, and composure, but every so often he would let it crack. Perhaps a flash of anger, a sudden burst of vulnerability, a glimpse of something darker beneath the surface. That small fracture would make him unforgettable. People do not obsess over what they fully understand. They obsess over what feels just out of reach. Give them 90%, then go silent, and they will chase the other 10 forever. And through it all, he would speak less than anyone else in the room. Words reveal weakness, the fear of being misunderstood, the hunger for validation, the desperation to be believed. But silence reveals nothing. A single sharp sentence, followed by a pause, creates more fear than a long explanation ever could. People rush to fill silence, and in doing so, reveal themselves. The fewer words you use, the heavier each one becomes. True mystery lives not in what is said, but in what is withheld. And while others are left talking too much, Machiavelli would blur the line between friend and enemy. People crave certainty, to know who is loyal, who is dangerous, who is safe. But he would never allow such clarity. He would compliment rivals, sit at the table with enemies, defend those he planned to remove. Was he an ally or a threat? The answer would always remain hidden until it was too late. For the fox survives by detecting traps, and the lion survives by frightening wolves. Machiavelli would be both, warm enough to be trusted, disarming enough to be underestimated, and ruthless enough to strike while everyone still wondered whether he was friend or foe. The easiest way to take power from someone is not through open conflict, but through comfort. Machiavelli knew that if you made others feel safe, they would hand you the keys themselves. He would mirror their language, echo their ideas, praise their decisions, and move in their shadow until they believed he was harmless. Then, when they finally relaxed, when they trusted him fully, he would strike cleanly and decisively. Betrayal stings most when it comes from the hand you thought was guiding you. And by the time his opponents realized it, they would already be powerless. But betrayal was only one tool. Dependence was far more devastating. Machiavelli would offer help, solve problems, and provide stability that others could not create on their own. He would become a necessity, a silent anchor in their lives, until they leaned on him without even noticing it. Then, without warning, he would withdraw. The void left behind would crush them, because nothing destroys faster than losing the one thing you thought you could never lose. People often hate the dependency itself more than the person who created it, and in that hatred, they remain tied to the memory of the one who controlled them. Every favor Machiavelli gave, he would turn into a weapon. Most people helped to be liked, but he would help to create leverage. A small gift, an opportunity, a solution, not offered out of kindness, but out of strategy. And he would never let them forget it. The debt would linger, unspoken but heavy, gnawing at their pride until they repaid him in loyalty, in favors, or in silence. Because a debt that is never repaid does not fade. It grows heavier, becoming a chain that binds tighter with time. But loyalty built on kindness alone is fragile. Machiavelli knew the strongest loyalty came from entanglement, from getting people to compromise for you. He would never force betrayal. He would simply create openings. A whispered secret here, a broken rule there, a casual insult against someone else spoken in confidence. Without realizing it, they would betray others to win his approval, tying themselves to him through their own disloyalty. People defend what they have already compromised for, and once they betrayed for him once, they would fear losing him more than they feared losing anyone else. And when alliances grew too strong, Machiavelli would not attack them head-on. He would erode them from within. A single suggestion, a subtle doubt, a whispered observation. Have you noticed how she never defends you? Or did you hear what he said about you the other night? Nothing direct, nothing aggressive, only seeds planted gently in fertile soil. Suspicion would grow like poison, cracking the foundation of trust until the alliance destroyed itself. Why battle a fortress when you can convince the guards to turn on each other? Even insecurities could be sharpened into weapons. Machiavelli would never insult openly. Instead, he would reflect doubts back to people in ways that seemed harmless. You always pull through, even when people don't take you seriously. You're brave, especially for someone who isn't used to this kind of attention. These words, soft on the surface, dig into hidden wounds. And once someone believes you are the only one who truly understands them, they begin to orbit you, deferring to your judgment, obeying without realizing why. Threats create resistance. Insecurities open the door from the inside. And through all of this, Machiavelli would never hold the knife himself. Every betrayal, every downfall, every removal, it would never be traced directly to him. He would orchestrate outcomes, whisper suggestions, feed both sides information, but always step back before the fire caught. Others would carry out the dirty work, while he appeared untouched. If you are seen as the executioner, you make enemies. But if you are seen as the inevitable alternative after someone else fails, you gain followers. The hands remain clean, even as the strategy behind them remains ruthless. The most powerful person in any room is rarely the loudest. It is the one who says nothing, yet watches everything. Machiavelli would walk into today's world of podcasts, rants, and endless noise, and he would win by becoming the one who refused to fill the silence. An insult thrown his way would be met with nothing. A direct question would receive only a faint smile. A trap designed to provoke him would fail because he offered no reaction. Silence, disguised as passivity, is a weapon. It forces others to speak more, to reveal more, to expose the very thoughts they should have hidden. In trying to fill the void, they would hand him everything he needed without him ever asking. But silence alone would not be enough. Predictability is the true weakness of power. If people can forecast your every reaction, they can manipulate you with ease. Machiavelli would be careful, consistent in small matters, but in moments that truly mattered, he would shift. Sometimes forgiving, sometimes punishing, sometimes vanishing altogether. The unpredictability would not come often, only when it counted most. And because no one could be certain whether he would show mercy or strike, they would live in constant hesitation. Fear is born not just from aggression, but from uncertainty, and unpredictability makes fear permanent. Even absence could be turned into a weapon. Machiavelli would not need to be in every room to control it. His presence would linger like a shadow, shaping conversations long after he had left. People would second-guess their decisions, wondering what he would have said. Victories would feel incomplete because they could not help but imagine how he would have achieved them differently. Even in absence, he would be the standard, the reference point, the unseen judge against whom all others were measured. To dominate, you do not need to always show up. You need to leave such an imprint that your influence haunts the room when you are gone. And though many leaders make the mistake of threatening openly, Machiavelli would never need to. Threats create resistance. Fear creates obedience. He would let his rivals wonder what he might do, never spelling it out. A pause after catching a lie. A single phone call followed by silence. A sudden disappearance with no explanation. Fear rooted in imagination is far stronger than fear rooted in information. People will work for your approval not because of what you said, but because of what they fear you might do if they ever cross you. Revenge, too, would never be rushed. Most people retaliate quickly, blinded by anger, but Machiavelli would wait. He would let the offense sit, let his enemies grow comfortable, even believe they had escaped. And then, when the timing was perfect, he would strike cleanly, decisively, and without hesitation. To injure an enemy, he believed, it must be done so completely that they can never recover. Instant anger hands power to the other side. Patience ensures they never see it coming. True revenge is not a reaction. It is control of time itself. And even beyond the individual, Machiavelli would transform himself into something larger. He would refuse to be seen only as a man. He would become a system, a structure, a way of thinking that others depended on to function. His strategies would outlive him, his influence embedded into processes and institutions that could not be undone. To remove him would not just mean losing a person, it would mean dismantling the very framework others had come to rely on. This is how legacies are built, not through charisma, but through permanence. At last, Machiavelli's final rule of power: to make others afraid even to speak your name. The ultimate form of dominance is not recognition, but haunting. People would reference him without saying who he was. They would warn each other with only a glance. You know what happens if you cross him. His presence would live in the atmosphere, not in words. To invoke his name would feel dangerous, as though it summoned something larger than life. He would not trend, he would not chase attention. He would linger, unspoken but unforgettable. And that is where his genius lies. Not in noise, not in fame, not in being loved or hated, but in controlling the invisible threads that guide people's choices without them even realizing it. If Machiavelli lived today, he would not be in front of the camera, he would not be on stage, and he would not be screaming to be heard. He would be in the shadows, shaping the narrative with silence, ambiguity, and precision. He would be the hidden gravity that no one could escape.